Hi everybody, Sid from Cool Moviegram, your source for everything about cool movies. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, and check out my other contents and let me know of your thoughts. How do you think I'm doing with my content? Well, it's been a great week. Today we're going to be going for something a lot more different. Now, what we're going to be covering is the much coveted, much loved Bollywood. Okay, now I'm not a huge lover of Bollywood films. I've seen my fair share, and it's just like any other form of language of film. You either have really good, not so bad, some okay, and some really absolute pieces of. Me as a fan of film, I just view it as just like any other form of cinema. It's either good or bad. You either got good movies or you got movies that you don't like. This video is going to be, I'm going to be covering 5 movies. There might be more coming because there's so many. This is 5 movies where Bollywood failed in recreating or remaking another movie from another country. Now, this is not a direct attack on Bollywood as an art form, or their movies, or their actors, or their directors. It's just, for example, I've watched films from nearly whatever country you can think of. I've seen great movies, from Hong Kong cinema, from South Korea, Japan, Hollywood, and whatnot. But at the same time, as many great movies as they make, they've made some absolute stinkers. They've made some absolute monstrosities and crimes against cinema. Now, that's all this is. This is just my subjective look at films that they've remade, either from Hollywood and other countries, which were miserably terrible films. They've remade some classics, some originals, some official remakes with the actual rights that were purchased, and some that they were just unofficial remakes, just lifting scenes as well as the plots from these from films that were pretty popular. Now, this is not going to be covering films where they're actually kind of lifting scenes from other movies, but the plot's completely different. This is actual movies that were pretty much, the plots were identical. They were pretty much the same thing, but just made like a very kind of like shitty, poor quality. And the filmmakers, the fact that they were able to actually release stinking pieces of shit like this. Anyways, might as well stick into the meat of the matter. Now let's just get into it. First up, we have a movie from 2012 called Players, which is a 2012 movie. The directors were Abbas Mastan, which are a director duo of 2 brothers, and they're pretty much famous for making films, like remaking films from Hollywood, but just for another audience. Now, they've had pretty much big successes, for example, such as a movie called Bazigar, which was which means winner, which is a remake of the movie A Kiss Before Dying, which starred Matt Dillon. And that was the film that pretty much made Shah Rukh Khan, SRK, who's like pretty much one of the biggest like movie star in the world at the moment. He's the most recognizable face on the planet, apparently. It made him a star. But then the thing is, this kind of also, this one here, Players, which is from 2012, which has like a multi-star cast. It was a remake of, I think it's F. Gary Gray's The Italian Job, which is from 2003, which was a remake of the 1969 Michael Caine classic. This one, it's, what can I say? That the film, I don't know how they failed. All they had to do was pretty much follow what the actual 2003 movie was, pretty much with Mark Wahlberg. That was pretty much a, it would have been a hit if they just kind of carried it on. But I don't know what it is. They kind of added elements of, making the main character like a Robin Hood type of character, and gold cars like made out of gold, and it's just, to be honest, even the cinematography, just all it was, you could tell it was just post-production editing that was just glossed over the actual, just the film that was filming that was done. And I just think it was just like, oh, it's just atrocious. It just kind of looks really kind of like overly trying to be flashy, trying to be really kind of like, you know, look how cool and slick this movie looks, but it just kind of looked cringy, corny, and like, it was thrown together. And, you know, maybe the cast probably they looked half asleep in this film. They didn't even want to try. It was just like really bad filmmaking, and it kind of reflected on the box office. Now, it was an absolute disaster. I mean, the critics absolutely panned this film, and it was an absolute stinker, a disaster at the box office too. You know, even for it's not one of those that it's so bad it's good. It's so bad that it's bad. Next one is a movie called Ek Ajnabi, which translated to A Stranger. 2005 movie directed by Apurva Lakhia, which is a remake of Tony Scott's 2004 crime classic action movie Man on Fire. Now this, considering it starred Amitabh Bachchan, who's like an icon in the main role, it pretty much follows the same story, and everything from like the cinematography, the editing, you know, the way the scenes are done. Maybe the ending had a bit more of a change to it, but everything else was almost identical. The style of filmmaking, it was pretty much kind of like just imitating the whole plot of Man on Fire, and everything was pretty much the same. And even the fact that, like, for example, the main character based on Washington's John Creasy was pretty much the same type of person, who's a bitter alcoholic who's kind of going through some PTSD from his time in the military. And I think this film was in Thailand, so of course they switched like South America, which was in the original Man on Fire, to like Thailand, where the film was based. And it just did not have that kind of like weight or the emotional kind of like, they tried their best, but it's just, everything was just pretty much like a carbon copy. And the fact is that when you see like, for example, the making of this movie, which is available on the DVD that was released at the time, they kind of like trying to make out like how the director was such a visionary, so disciplined and unique with his ideas. But the fact is, you were just it looks like he was actually watching the movie whilst making the movie. He was just watching every scene and thinking, okay, you know what, we'll do something exactly the same. And it just kind of lives up a bitter aftertaste in the mouth. And of course, this film was pretty much a this was a flop at the box office as well. And it just, you know, it was just lazy filmmaking. It was just really lazy filmmaking. And I'm thinking that, like, they're trying to pass it off as something so unique. Now, the fact that Man on Fire came out a year before, so pretty much they watched this movie whilst they probably were making this movie whilst this movie was out on the cinemas, or they must have had a DVD of the movie, and they were watching it whilst they were actually filming their own versions. Like, oh, you know what? We'll copy this scene and then we'll do, you know, we'll do our own version of it. And it just seems so lazy, uninspiring, and it's just absolute. It was a stinker. The next one is a movie called Papi Gudiya, which translates to Sinful Doll. A 1996 movie directed by Lawrence D'Souza, and if you can kind of guess what movie they're pretty much ripping off on in this one, it's a remake of the Tom Holland directed 1988 movie Child's Play. Yep, so pretty much it's exactly the same. It's about a child murderer who practices black magic. Whilst he's dying, he transfers his soul into a little kid's doll, and he begins to kind of like use that to kind of kill and lure children and whatnot. But he kind of like starts tormenting his new owner and his sister. And this film, it's just so hack jobbed awful. I mean, it's one of those that you laugh at the film, not with the film. It's just like the fact that they were trying to go for something really serious and so like convincingly, oh, this is a good, that whoever thought this was going to be a good movie, I don't know why they even kind of did. The fact that, okay, you get to see more of the actual kind of the serial killer, which of course is based on the whole Charles Lee Ray character. You get to see more of him here than you do in Child's Play. But the fact is that he's supposed to be this notorious character. But then he goes into this doll. I mean, look at the doll. It's just so like, this is meant to be scary. At least Chucky had this kind of menacing kind of like aura about him. Like when you watch the original Child's Play movies, I don't find that scary. But the fact is, as a child, you would watch those movies, like the Chucky films. Chucky actually looks kind of menacing. But this, oh my God, it's like, seriously, I mean, what the hell? I mean, why did this even get commissioned? How did anyone convince the actual, the producers that this would actually be something that would work? How the hell would this even get past the actual, you know, for example, the production companies and whatnot thinking that, okay, you're sitting down, yeah, we'll release the movie as this is, let the guy direct the film how he wants to direct it. But it's just like, everything's just so bad. I mean, the acting, the thrills, and you know, it's just like really bad cinema that you don't laugh with, you laugh at, and it's just shockingly bad. Next up is a movie called Action Replay with an extra Y at the end. It's a 2010 movie directed by Vipul Amritlal Shah and a remake of Back to the Future. Yeah, it's just pretty much about a kid who kind of like goes back into time in order to kind of like improve the relationship between his parents and kind of give them a better kind of like married life. But the fact is, it is pretty much a rip-off of Back to the Future. And it's like, it's one of those that they tried so hard, it's like, it just becomes cringe-inducing. Now, the jokes, I mean, they were meant to be hilarious, but everyone's just so acting with a heightened sense of like, you know, just overly, there's theatrical and then there's overly theatrical, which is not needed. And of course, I mean, considering it featured Aishwarya Rai and Akshay Kumar, who's kind of like, again, a huge star in his native country. And, you know, the fact is the director himself is so kind of like conceited of this movie. When asked why the film flopped, he didn't admit to the fact that, yeah, I made a shitty remake of an iconic sci-fi classic like Back to the Future. Resorting to, oh, the main star Akshay Kumar looked geeky, that's why the film flopped. No, Mr. Shah, the film flopped because it was absolutely terrible. It was just badly made. The jokes are just so hammy, so overdone, so lazy, and just kind of like juvenile. I mean, again, you're actually laughing at the film, not with the film. And it's just, you know, it could have been something good, but the fact is that you tried and you failed at trying to make something that just turned out to be an absolute stinking piece of cinematic diarrhea. Lastly is a film called Aatish, Feel the Fire, 1994 movie directed by Sanjay Gupta, which is a remake of A Better Tomorrow, which is the Hong Kong movie classic, the seminal Hong Kong movie directed by John Woo from 1986. Yeah, now, I mean, there's a lot of people who try to kind of say, oh, but no, Aatish was more based on the movie Diwar, which was a film about two brothers, one becomes a cop and one becomes a criminal. But that isn't the case. When you watch this movie, it's pretty much the storyline, the way how things are. The fact is that the character's already a criminal and is working for a counterfeit operation. He decides to give the life up after getting arrested, and of course, instead of a father, it's the mother who gets killed, and this creates a wedge between the brothers. It's kind of, it feels really kind of like just again, cheaply rehashed. I mean, they used like music scores from films like Conquest of Paradise by Vangelish's score, but also from Blade Runner. You had Hans Zimmer's music from Black Rain, and which other one? Oh yeah, Young Guns too. Used music from there. And this was, it just kind of, even the shootouts just seemed really uninspired, and it just kind of like, really kind of like trying hard. I mean, there's some certain scenes were done pretty good. And of course, there's more like musical numbers thrown into it. I mean, the actors tend to do the best that they can with the material. And it just seemed really kind of like just cheaply made. And the fact that, you could tell some of the scenes were not shot in India. I mean, a lot of the film was kind of filmed in Mauritius, where you can obviously tell that's not India. This is Mauritius. And, the fact that they changed a few things was okay, but the fact that it just looked really kind of like the sound design of like the shootouts, the sound effects are just not great. The editing is just really sloppy. And even at the end, I mean, one of the characters, he's got the big machine gun with a red tip, looks like a toy gun. It's like, pew, 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 pew. It's just like, like they say, I mean, I've seen films like, for example, like, when you watch them when you're younger, they weren't kind of like in the highest of definition. You think that, when you watch them in HD, some films actually improve in quality. Like you watch them in 4K, HD remastered quality, and they look good. I mean, it's stellar filmmaking. And this goes even for some Bollywood made movies. You watch them in, like, for example, in new restorations with a cleaned up picture and great high definition, and it still looks good. Whereas for this movie, Aatish, it just, I mean, Sanjay Gupta, who's kind of like notorious for where most of his films are pretty much remakes of films from other countries. 95% of his filmography is pretty much, or 99% I would say, is pretty much a remake of other movies. That's what his filmography is. But this one, it was just kind of like, it was just a really cheaply made kind of like remake of like John Woo's masterpiece. And you even I've had people kind of tell me, oh yeah, but it was better than A Better Tomorrow. No, it wasn't. I mean, you don't understand. I mean, you watch both of these films, if you were to watch them HD wise, for example, on Blu-ray or 4K, you kind of see the quality of filmmaking in between those two. It's just stellar. I mean, the fact is that A Better Tomorrow is made in 1986, which is like, the 80s, and the remake Aatish was made in 1994. So it's like almost it's a decade apart. But, when you watch both these films in brand new transfers, you could tell that A Better Tomorrow still looks newer and fresher, and the action, the direction, and everything, like in terms of like the script consistency, it's just a lot more. It's stellar filmmaking. I mean, which is why, I mean, even now people class A Better Tomorrow as one of the greatest Chinese movies ever made. It was in I think it was Time Out magazine, someone had actually done like 100 Chinese films that you need to watch, and A Better Tomorrow was pretty much near the top, and I can see why. It was a stellar filmmaking, but this was, again, it was just a really lazy kind of like a reimagining. They tried their best at doing something new, but it failed with a very kind of like just lackluster directing, and the actors were just along for the ride, and that kind of like just shows, like, it's just one of those films that maybe at the time some people thought it was like going to become a cult classic because it wasn't really that great of a hit. But watching it more or less, 20-30 years later, about 30 odd years later, you just kind of realize that no, this is just like lazy, uninspired filmmaking, and it's bad. It's really bad. Right, well, I mean, I'm going to be doing probably more because there's so many different qualities. Again, if there's anybody from India, any fans of these films that I've just mentioned, please understand, this is not a direct attack. I'm not shitting on Indian cinema at all. I mean, there are some great filmmakers, great actors, great talented people, but the fact is, even some of these great talented people have been involved in these 5 movies that I've mentioned. But I'm going to be doing other movies that I'll be covering in different videos, see how this one fares out, and hopefully nobody tries to kill me, nobody sends death threats or spams me with how dare you say anything about Bollywood. But the fact is, you got to understand, there's great filmmaking and there's shitty filmmaking regardless which country or which language your films are coming from. But then when you've got films like this, you just can't help but say, what the F were you thinking when you actually made these movies? Right, well, yeah, I'll be doing more videos, and again, check out my other content, follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.